Florence, Italy, the starting place of the Renaissance. Humanistic individualization, a rebirth in classical art, philosophy, technology, and so forth. The medieval era lasted for about 1,000 years, up until the early to mid-15th century. For comparison, the United States was founded not even 250 years ago. The reason I mention this is because while the Italian Renaissance sparked a domino effect between other countries in Europe, it wasn't a complete remodeled society for the majority of people living at the time. And so instead of viewing Florence as a country setting a trend for the rest of Europe, and yes, it was considered its own country, not a part of Italy or the Roman Catholic Empire, it was more like a bubble, a place where people flocked to set out on a new path, mostly well-to-do merchants, but also artists. In Renaissance art, a very short introduction, Geraldine A. Johnson dedicates a chapter on the way art was viewed in a historical sense. The notion is that in the era before the Renaissance, medieval perceptions of art was centered around its symbolism and bringing context to religious text. Depictions of holy people, their story, and the afterlife gave those who didn't have the ability to read a way to understand Christian mythology. Art didn't stand by itself, as modern art is presented in a gallery on blank walls. It was a part of ceremony, a ritual performed by the church. Artists were given careful instructions on their commissions by their sponsors, how they will be illustrated, with what, with whom, and which materials would be used to make it. In a sense, it was made to spread the ideas of the religion and those who had sponsored the work, and the artist had little liberty on its construction. But during the humanistic movement, which embraced individuality and the success of business, inventions, philosophy, etc., sponsors of art had desired the demand for more unique, awe-striking pieces which they can parade around as trophies for themselves. The Medici family paved the way for flourishing arts as their interest funded emulating and surpassing antique models of artistic fleets. Some teaching artists like Donatello, Ghiberti, and Michelangelo carried this style through their students. Sculptors along with artists excelled. In 1445, Della Robbia family of sculptors was established, and around 1469, Lorenzo the Magnificent Medici calls his court with artists as Sandro Botticelli, Domenico Ghirlandaio, and Michelangelo. Artists flocked to Florence to learn classical technique before being hired in other cities as far as Prague during the 16th century. And there I was looking at the first art academy established in 1563 and still operating to this day. The compass method we can trace back to ancient Greece and even find evidence for it in the Bronze Age in Egypt. The primary tool, of course, is the compass, a simple measuring device with two metal or wood sticks held together with a moving joint. They are easy to make and can be altered in different ways to reach whatever point you need. The process starts off with your stone and your form. You can transfer the form as the size it is by using the compass tool to measure a point on the form and moving it over to the rock. The key is to have your rock and your form matching in position, so when you take a point from one, it will transfer equal to the other. So attaching your form and rock on something like a flat board, you then place anchoring points, positions in which one leg of your compass will sit, which must match in placement between the two models. This is crucial because the one leg of the compass will be anchored in these points, while the other takes the measurement of the point you wish to transfer. You'll move your compass to the rock and place the same leg into the anchoring point and scrape the other point along the rock to create a light C shape on the surface. You then outline that mark and repeat the process twice more, but taking measurements of the same point from different anchoring positions. You must take the measurement at least 3 times to be accurate. When you first mark your 3 measurements, they won't be touching, but the goal is to have them meet each other at an intersection by carving away the stone until those measurements meet. The best technique I learned using the pick tool to carve outlines along the area of rock you want to shave off. By making parallel lines, you weaken the layer of marble and using a flat tool to break up the hills you create. This gives so much control and consistency in shaving down the material and is my favorite part of making a point. So you will make the measurements, carve the stone in their shared area, and retake those measurements over and over again until they meet. You want to carve down in the same direction your desired point to transfer it, and the way your measurement lines bend and move help you guide the way, so the more times you draw your measurements, the more accurate you will be at each point. You can also use a pre-made point to further create accuracy on a new point's location. This can also help visualize where your point will be. The goal is to find the shape with as few points as necessary. This, though, gets easier the more times you do it, and so for practice it's okay to make as many points as you need to find your way around the stone. You start from high points along the entire model and find different planes along the model. For example, a cheek is round, so you can get a sense of the shape and freely carve it away by connecting points along the surface. One at the highest point, one in the middle, and another where the cheek runs off. Points become more necessary around areas of high detail, like the facial features on a human model. You're basically able to freehand when you are able to see the form, but some areas need isolated attention. The compass can also measure details. I can draw out roughly where the entire model will be in stone. It is truly a useful tool for artists, and there is an endless amount of modifications you can make to a compass to make it perfect for reaching each point. You can bend the ends to give it a round or grab. You can extend the compass with a piece of wood or metal to make it larger. You can cut the legs if you need a very short tool. It's simple to make and easy to modify, and that's what drew me to this method to begin with. While the pointing machine was invented in the 18th century, the compass tool has been a staple for thousands of years and was the primary tool for sculptors of the Renaissance like Donatello and Michelangelo.